Hey, I'm Taylor, a business consultant and strategist, and I'm here to teach you that you can scale your business sustainably. This is Simply Business, your playbook for structure, clarity, and strategy that grows your business without costing your lifestyle. Let's get into it. You said you look for a good founder. What makes a good founder?
Yeah, it's an interesting idea because you could ask the same thing like, oh well, you're recruiting for a particular job. I've got a position description. Like, how do you find me a good employee? I'm like, well, the hardest thing about people is that they're the people. And like it's very hard to get a black and white scorecard on those people. And yes, you can do personality testing and all this sort of jazz, but all those are inherently moderate. At best, they're directional. At best, they're not like this is person good. You should do deal.
Bummer.
I think at a headline level, like obviously you want someone who has at least average or above average intelligence, right? Because they're going to have the capacity to solve the problems that they need to solve. You're going to want someone that has a meaningful amount of energy in a general sense, because if they don't, they're not going to be able to tolerate the hours and the workload and all these sorts of things. Ideally, you also want someone who has incredibly high integrity, because you remember your investment is trust in their behavior, not even just a result of the business, but their behavior. And there's plenty of examples of founders running off with money and you're doing all these sorts of things. And also too, they're a representation of you if you're an investor. So it's really important that they uphold whatever it is that you believe to be good behavior. I think if you're looking at this from a more, like pure play, like psychological standpoint, and just to be clear, this is exactly the same way I try to go about recruiting executives, like senior executives in companies too. Again, like moderate or above average intelligence. I think you need to have very low neuroticism. And when I say that, a lot of people think like, neuroticism is about being neurotic, rah, rah, rah. No, like neuroticism in psychological terms means that so if you have low neuroticism, you have a great capacity to handle negative emotion, right? And that's incredibly important because business sucks.
Yeah.
It's really painful, and really upsetting and really stressful and lots of pressure and all these sorts of things. And so if you can't meaningfully process negative emotion, doesn't mean you can't be successful. But if you're betting on that person, you want to bet on someone who has lower neuroticism.
Yeah.
Ideally, high openness, high conscientiousness, high orderliness. Why? Well, because conscientiousness and orderliness strongly correlate to, meaningful purpose and duty, attention to detail, structured and methodical approach to work, and their behaviors and characteristics that normally do well, in the long term. But coming back to my initial point, like these are like directional guidelines.
Yeah.
Right. There's not like a perfect recipe. Some people will say that the best founders are the ones that are hurt the most because they have the biggest reason to prove X, Y, Z. But I'm not sure that would actually like statistically, roll out to be true. But smart, intelligent, genuine, high integrity, and ideally someone who can handle themselves, emotionally.
Yeah. I think the integrity piece as well is so huge.
It's really huge, and I think it also presents in a lot of ways that people wouldn't understand. Like they think it's like, oh, don't steal, don't lie, don't whatever, right? But it's not even just about that. It's like it's integrity and decision making. So like, I've got to fire this person. Like, how am I going to go about doing that? There's ways to do that. There's also, the business is really growing. Well, I'm currently paid $100,000 a year. I mean, there is more money. I could probably pay myself $200,000 a year. As opposed to being like, well, hey, like what's best for the business?
Yeah.
It's not about you. It's about the business.
Yeah.
Right. And I would argue that a huge amount of founders, mess this one thing up. And that is that they think that the business's job is to pay them.
Yeah.
It's not. Their job is to create value with the business. And if they're good at creating value, the business will make money and then reward them with a bigger salary, dividends, or an exit check.
So sorry, but I'm going to quickly interrupt this podcast episode to quickly chat about the Business Accelerator. If you've been enjoying the podcast content or what I'm posting on social media and you want to work closely together with me and my team, the Accelerator is going to be the best space for you to do so. Think of the Accelerator like a business development hub where you have access to me and our resident consultants so you can be super supported in every area of your business, whether it be operations, client experience, finance, or marketing. We then support you with implementation. So So no more courses of just the how-tos, whilst you also get that inside of the accelerator. It's all about us actually supporting you as you implement. You get fortnightly check-ins where you submit your data around your revenue, your marketing, and how things are actually performing. So we can recommend adjustments for you on a fortnightly basis. You have access to advisory calls where you can have access to me and the other resident consultants to ask questions, get feedback, and get the support you need as you're implementing. This isn't going to be something that adds something more to your plate as a busy founder. It's going to be something that actually takes away from it so you feel supported as a founder. You can find out more about the accelerator on our website. We'll link everything you need in the show notes, or feel free to just DM me on Instagram if you want to find out more and see if it's going to be the best space for you. Let's get back to the show.
But so many founders get it back to front. They're like, I work so hard, like I deserve to have more money. I'm like, you don't deserve anything. Like the business doesn't owe you anything. Your customers don't owe you anything. It's your job to create value for them.
Yeah.
And objectively, if you do a good job at that, you will make money. Full stop. Right. And you get remunerated both personally, but also your business. You will make more money if you can create more value for more people.
Yeah.
That can't be easily replicated by other people. There's a reason that SpaceX is worth lots of money, overvalued or not. There's a reason that OpenAI, and Claude or Anthropic and all these other businesses are worth huge amounts of money in relative terms to lots of very, very old businesses. That's because what they're creating is very hard to replicate, and it creates value for a huge amount of people and businesses.
Yeah.
And that's really the first principle that I think a lot of people misunderstand.
Yeah, I love that. I work with a lot of founders that are like, it's just themselves. Maybe they have one team member. And I think that's such a big thing for business owners, is separating themselves from the business as the asset. And I love that point of just like, it doesn't owe you anything. And I say that to clients all the time. I'm like, just because your business is turning over X amount, that's not your salary.
No, it's almost like co-identification, right? They're like, I am business, business is I.
Yeah.
Right. And just to be clear, even if you are, I said there's a lot to people who are influencers before, even if you are an influencer, XYZ influencer Instagram handle is not XYZ person.
Yeah.
They are different things.
Yeah.
And anyone who thinks that that's true, either as an observer or a participant, in influencing, is meaningfully wrong. And I actually think like thinking about life that way and coming back to the whole, I am my business and I work really hard and so I deserve money from my business. Like that is such a fragile mindset. Like it only leads to one outcome, and that's pain, because you're more focused on what you deserve, you should be rewarded with, rather than focusing on, well, what value am I creating for the end user, experientially, product, service, whatever it may be, like what value am I actually creating? And so all of this stuff, in all the academia that's like customer first, long-term brand decisions, XYZ, that's true, but it's so abstract that people like can't really understand it. I might bring it all the way down. It's like, is your product fucking good? And if it is, convince me. Are customers telling you it's good? Is the feedback good? Are they buying it? Are they paying full price? Are they coming back again? These are all really basic indicators that are or are not creating value for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's super simple.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'd be curious to know, if we were to take the example of an influencer, so someone that is kind of themselves, what would you say is like the best advice for them to really build that asset of the business then? So like, I think it would be hard to go, okay, well, how do I separate myself and create that value if they're wanting to look at scaling like their personal brand?
Yeah.
I know that's a very loaded question.
No, totally. I think it depends on the goal.
Yeah.
Right. So if you said to me that, I'm influencer, whoever doing this thing, and my goal is to get like the most followers, I'm like, okay. Well, you should start on the assumption that you're not that interesting.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to find a way to make yourself interesting. Right. That's how you're going to get followers, presumably. Right. And interesting could be, I provide valuable content that teaches people. Interesting could be I'm drama. Interesting could be I'm funny. Interesting could be I'm an athlete following my journey. Like there's lots of different interesting, versions of interesting. But I think the primary issue that people fall into, and I actually think that this gets worse the more followers certain people get, depending on their mindset. The more followers they get, the more they think that's reinforcement that they're useful and good, but they're not. What it is, it's a reinforcement that those 2-second snippets of your life that you share are interesting to somebody, but those 2-second snippets are not you. And so if your goal is more followers, you should deliberately design, strategically design the 2-second snippets so that is achieving your goal. If your goal was to make the most amount of money, well, you would need to come to the conclusion very quickly that that's not necessarily from the most followers.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, I think this idea of like objective oriented decision making, which is a proxy idea from software engineering, but objective oriented decision making is kind of the be all and end all of like how business decisions and influencer branding decisions and whatever should be made. It's like, what actually are you trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And choose one or two things and then don't change them for like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Because if you're constantly pivoting around, then you're just changing based on likes and engagement, but that's not actually like that's a algorithmic representation of whether or not a person on a device somewhere was in the mood to think that your content was good. It's not a representation of whether or not you're making great decisions. You need to look at the trend over a long time.
Yeah, I love that so much, especially even when I'm thinking to myself in my business, like actually going off the data and that piece around like not pivoting. I feel like so many people change their bio every 3 minutes and it's like they're changing, you know, who their target market is and all of the things, but it
totally
takes so much time to build.
Yeah, and I think too, like let's say that that's an aspect of decision making.
Yeah.
Right. I think that a really big mistake, especially very early on with a bio or a display picture or like whatever the hell it is, which I would call they're mostly trivial, but like those sorts of things. I would say that unless you've been doing this for a long time and been really successful at it for a long time, objectively, then if you have not been that, doing all these small changes all the time is arrogance, and it's masked arrogance. Normally fear-driven, right? But it comes from this perspective of like, well, I understand now, so I'll change it to this because that will work.
Yeah.
It's not actually, is this working? If not, I wonder why. And how am I going to answer that? Yeah, and like this is it's a small nuance, but it's a critical nuance in the way that people think. You know, a lot of people start from the position that this is not working, that's what will work. They've already jumped to solution. They haven't actually bothered to hypothesize about why. Yeah. And as a result of that, they end up in a self-deprecating or a self-ruining, feedback loop. I keep changing all these things, having so many learnings. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. I'm like, well, what shows you've learned? Because theoretically, if you learned, your results would be better.
Yeah.
Right. But because you're not looking at the results and then hypothesizing about why, you're not. You're actually just jumping from arrogant idea to arrogant idea to arrogant idea. You're not like methodically working through things and looking at a feedback loop.
Yeah.
And this like exact, little nugget, if you will, is like so prevalent online for people who also have been hyper successful. Then they create their own content after and they drop these little nuggets. But the people receiving them don't have the judgment or nuance or understanding to know that what they're saying is true, but you're not understanding what they're saying.
Yeah.
Right? And I've had like lots of fascinating experience with this. Simon Beard, him and his wife Tani built Culture Kings. We've caught up a couple of times, and like I've learned so much from him because I'm not an expert in retail.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and even consumer clothing. Like, that's not something I have deep expertise in. Huge expertise in sales, marketing, product, all these sorts of things. But that specific thing, I don't have a lot of expertise in. And when I listen to him, I have to be really disciplined that every single thing that he says that comes out of his mouth, I have to ask a question to clarify. I need to, my habit and my reflex has to be to clarify. Because if my assumption is I know, then I'm just doing the same thing I just said. I'm assuming that, got you, no worries. But there's nuance there that I have to respect. And if I'm not curious and intellectually humble enough to acknowledge that there's shit that he knows that I don't, well, then I'm going to end up in this self-perpetuating, self-validating feedback loop that isn't actually real if that's, for example, something I wanted to pursue. And so for people who like follow a lot of these, business coaches or inspiring entrepreneurs online, I think a lot of the time they go, love that, like. I'm like, you don't actually know what you like or love. Like you're taking a surface value statement and you're not really deeply understanding the value that's there. And the validation of that is that if you did, well, you'd be doing that. Everyone will be doing that. And
that's another episode of Simply Business. I would love for you to rate this podcast, comment below if you have any feedback, DM me on Instagram, and even better, share it with your friends, family, or share on Instagram. See you in the next episode.